Shirota is a disgusting lonely loser who is living a worthless life than all of you combined.
Emotional, damn it!
Until one day, he accidentally walked in on the school's most hottest girl, where she was changing her clothes. That single mistake made him the only person unaffected by her strange power to time travel and go back into past again and again. Now, she's decided to make him her private slave, and whether he likes it or not, he's stuck obeying every crazy order she gives. But guys, her order is more likely every man's dream. A day of pathetic lonely life is started again, with a lonely loser named Shirota, feeling sorry for himself again because of last night beating.
Lord have mercy.
On the other hand, there was Takamine, the most beautiful and hottest girl in school. She was like a real-life angel of every man's dream, while Shirota was more like a shadow no one noticed. As always, he went to eat his lunch alone in the old storage room. He called it his secret hideout, but honestly, it looked more like a closet full of dust and broken chairs. But guys, this is heaven for my boy. He thought he could eat in peace until the door opened. To his shock, Takamine walked in. Before he could even react, she started changing her clothes right there. Shirota froze like a statue. And also guys, my editing stopped for an hour.
I caught you in 4K.
He tried to look away, but his monkey brain and his eyes weren't on the same team. So, he started looking like every man's basic nature. His heart started racing faster than Wi-Fi. That moment got burned into his memory forever, because he got the best view of biggest plots in the entire school.
Yeah, boy.
But the real question that kept bugging him was, why would someone like Takamine, the school's perfect angel, change in this messy room instead of the restroom? Something about her felt different, and Shirota knew this strange moment was just the start of something big.
Why are you gay?
Later that day, the teacher handed out the exam papers. Shirota, who never expected good marks, but this time he was shocked when he saw a 52 written on his sheet. For him, that was basically a world record for a guy like that. But the real shock came when Takamine, the perfect girl who always got a full score, ended up with a 98. The whole class went quiet for a moment, and then everyone started whispering about it like it was some huge scandal. Takamine looked a bit lost and asked the teacher to check again, but he confirmed the marks were right. From behind, Shirota could see her expression change. She stood up and walked away from her desk. And then something unbelievable happened. Takamine slipped her hands under her skirt and pulled off her plot armor, which every man wants.
What? I don't believe it!
Shirota's eyes went wide. His monkey brain stopped working when he sees the two bouncy footballs. He didn't know whether to look away or faint on the spot. But before he could even process the near-death experience, everything suddenly reset. The next second, he woke up again like nothing had happened. I think guys, he is a character of Final Destination. It was as if time had turned back. The same classroom, same people, same words, only this time, Takamine's paper showed a perfect 100. Shirota remembered clearly, she had scored 98 earlier, and it left him confused for the rest of the day. Was it a dream? Or something even stranger? His monkey mind is unable to process it. He finally gathered some courage from the Riz god and went to the student council room to talk to her. Nervously, he asked about her math score, the one that wasn't perfect. Takamine's calm eyes turned sharp. She stared at him and asked if he told anyone. Shirota felt his heart skips a beat and quickly said no. She relaxed a little but looked at him again with a serious face and said she knew he had seen something else. Shirota thought she was talking about her test. But before he could say anything, Takamine pushed him against the wall and gives him a CPR.
Oh shit!
Sorry, guys. I mean, she whispered that she meant what he saw in the storage room. He froze completely, not knowing what to do. But instead of being angry, she smiled slightly and said, well, what's done is done. Then she told him to sit down, gives him a glass of water, and said she wanted to make a deal with him. Shirota started shaking in fear, thinking Takamine might poison him for knowing her secret. His hands were trembling so badly that he spilled the water, almost splashing it on her massive plots. Takamine quickly dodged like a ninja, and Shirota rushed to clean it up, terrified of making her angry. But instead of shouting, Takamine smiled and said it was a good example. Then, out of nowhere, she loosened her tie and slowly began to take off her clothes. Before Shirota could even blink, the world reset again. Time looped back, and he felt it clearly. When the scene replayed, Takamine's clothes were now soaking wet, sticking to her body. Her white shirt became invisible to her skin, and Shirota's face turned red instantly. Tain sat on the table and told him to wipe her dry as punishment for spilling the water. God, please give this punishment to every subscriber.
Oh my god!
His hands shook as he followed her order. Then, she looked at him and asked if he noticed anything different about her. Shirota's mind went blank. He had no idea what she meant. Tain sighed in frustration, grabbed his hand, and placed it on her chest. Shirota's brain completely crashed like your joystick right now, guys. But before he could react, Tain kicked him hard between the legs to snap him out of it. You really can't notice anything, can you? She said proudly, calling him useless in front of her perfect figure.
Wait a minute!
That's when Shirota finally saw what had changed. Her plot armor was missing, and her clothes were wet. Tain then explained her secret. She said she had a special power called Eternal V Road. Every time she removes her plot armor, time goes back to the start of the day. But anyone who sees her skin before the reset remembers everything. That's why Shirota still knew what had happened before. The explanation was way too much for his brain to handle, so his brain and his joystick crashed immediately. He barely understood half of it, while Tain kept bragging about how perfect she was, her beauty, her grades, her body, everything. Shirota, however, couldn't focus on her words. He was too distracted by the fact that she was half-dressed right in front of him. Tain continued talking about how she got this strange power. She said it happened years ago at a summer festival when she lost a race because of a stomach ache. Embarrassed, she had an accident and, in that moment of shame, her ability awakened. Now, she believed her power existed to match her Miss Perfect name. Inside his head, Shirota thought, this girl really needs a doctor. After Tain finished talking about her strange story, she finally explained why she told him everything. Every time she uses her power, her plot armor disappears. That means she always needs new ones, and she wanted someone to help her with that. She looked at him and said he was the best choice for the job. Since he already knew her secret, and was the biggest loser in school, no one would ever think anything strange if he became her personal helper. Shirota stared at her in disbelief. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He'd had enough of this crazy talk and turned to leave the room. But before he could reach the door, Tain stopped him and asked why he refused. Shirota sighed and said straight up, because your power sounds weird, and the way you're asking is even weirder. He tried to walk away again, but Tain wasn't ready to lose. She blocked his path and grabbed his arm. They both lost balance and fell with Shirota landing on top of her, making a perfect landing on her. Before he could even move, Tain took his hand and placed it on her plots, looking at him with teasing eyes. But suddenly, she screams louder than a baby of 6 months. The noise echoed through the hallway, and people rushed to the student council room. Seeing their position, everyone jumped to conclusions. Tain started crying fake tears, saying that Shirota had harassed her. Everyone believed her instantly. Even the FBI came up. Shirota's mind went blank. He knew she had trapped him on purpose. Just before things got worse, Tain used her power and reset time again. Everything went back to normal, like nothing had happened. With a smug smile, she told Shirota he should thank her for saving him from being called a creep. Then, as if nothing was wrong, she asked him to help her put on her plot armor. Anyone else would have called it a dream come true. What would you think? Guys, this is a dream came true or not? Tell me in the comments. But for Shirota, it was pure torture. With his eyes shut tight and his face red, he helped her while thinking, my life can't get any worse than this. Tain noticed Shirota keeping his eyes shut and laughed, calling him a scared little kid for acting so shy. Even though he had peeked earlier, Shirota quickly dropped to the floor, apologizing again and again, saying it was an accident. Tain looked at him for a moment and sighed. Despite how stupid he acted, she admitted he still had a bit of goodness left in him. That night, Shirota had a dream about her. In it, he saw Takane's soft side, her tricks, and the moment when the FBI came running to arrest him. He woke up breathing hard, sweating, and still remembering everything that happened. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Tain. The text included her picture and a warning. Don't forget, today's your first day as my helper. On his way to school, Shirota couldn't stop worrying about what kind of crazy task she would give him. Behind him, Tain arrived, and everyone instantly surrounded her with smiles and greeting. She looked like a real goddess walking among mortals, but Shirota knew the truth behind that perfect smile was pure chaos. The boys nearby stared at her with hearts in their eyes, but she ignored them all and leaned close to Shirota's ear. In a soft voice, she whispered, "Come to the council room, now." Inside, Shirota felt nervous being alone with her again. His hands were sweaty, and his brain was screaming to run. Tain smirked and teased him, saying, "What's wrong? a slave shouldn't be scared of his master. Then she pulled out a big bag and handed it to him. Inside, it was full of her plot armors. She told him his new job was simple: carry the bag everywhere, and be ready to hand her a new plot armor whenever she needed one. Shirota panicked and tried to refuse, saying it sounded dangerous and embarrassing. But Takane's smile turned cold. She reminded him that her power could turn back time, and if he said no, she could send him right back to the moment when everyone thought he was a creep. The thought alone made Shirota break into a sweat. He gave up and nodded slowly. Takane smiled in victory. She unbuttoned her shirt slightly, smirking as she said, "Good boy, you deserve a little reward." Shirota froze as she stepped closer and slid her foot under his, making him fall onto his back. She leaned over him, playfully, pretending to take off her plot armor. His face turned red, and he immediately shut his eyes tight, begging her to stop. Tain laughed softly, clearly enjoying every second of his misery. "But guys, did you really think Shirota is really a man? Tell me in the comments."
You are gay.
Tain smirked, clearly enjoying being on top of him, just like girlfriend last night. But after a moment she moved away. She looked at him and said it would be easier if he just listened to her without needing threats. Then, in a softer voice, she added that even though she acts bold, she still has a little bit of shame left. She didn't want anyone else to ever see her plot armor, but since she trusted him, she'd make an exception. Her sudden shy tone caught Shirota off guard. For a second, his thoughts went wild, but he quickly shook his head to push them away. Trying to change the topic, he nervously asked if she really didn't feel anything toward him. Tain looked straight at him and said coldly, "No. I just want to train you until you completely follow my orders." Her words hit him like a punch. Shirota realized that to her, he wasn't a friend or a partner, just someone to control. Her honest words hit Shirota hard. Feeling hurt, he decided to leave for class, but Tain stopped him with a teasing smile. She said, "Hey, the plot armor isn't for your private collection." Shirota's face turned red, and he rushed out before she could say anything else. Later in class, he couldn't stop wondering what kind of moments Takane actually used her strange power for. Just then, the teacher asked her to stand and read a poem. Takane read it beautifully, her voice calm and clear, every word filled with meaning. When she finished, the teacher praised her, and the whole class clapped. Shirota thought she was amazing and hoped she wouldn't use her power for something silly. But then, a gust of wind blew through the window, and the teacher asked someone to close it. Suddenly, Takane stood up and said she wanted to try reading again. Shirota blinked in surprise as she secretly removed her plot armor, triggering her power. Time rewound to the moment before she started reading. When the teacher called on her again, she began once more, but this time, she timed her reading perfectly with the breeze. The wind flowed through the room as she read, making it feel like the class was watching a scene from an ancient story. Everyone was amazed, clapping even louder when she finished. Takane looked straight at Shirota and smiled proudly, showing off her little victory. Shirota sighed, realizing that, if she used her power, even for small things like this, he'd be the one helping her put on her plot armor hundreds of times. Just then, Takane threw a small paper ball at him. Inside it was a note, "Hurry up." Shirota froze. He knew exactly what that meant. It was time for his job. Looking around, he saw no safe way to help her right now, so he decided to wait until break. But Takane had already planned ahead. She dropped his eraser near her desk as a signal. Shirota hesitated, but then remembered how she could rewind time and save him from trouble. With no choice, he took a deep breath, slipped the plot armor from his pocket, and walked over. When no one was looking, he crouched to pick up the eraser and quickly helped Takane put her plot armor back on. Somehow, no one noticed, and he quietly celebrated his success. But when he looked again, his relief turned to panic. He hadn't adjusted it properly, and it looked like it was about to fall. Takane gave him a cold glare and a small hand signal to fix it again. Shirota's heart raced. The teacher started calling names to return books, and he imagined the worst: Takane walking to the front and her plot armor slipping off, everyone staring, and her blaming him. His life would be over. Then, he remembered her words that she'd feel embarrassed if anyone else saw her, but she didn't mind if it was him. That gave him a strange kind of courage. When the teacher called her name, Shirota quickly stood up instead. The teacher looked confused, but he lied, saying he thought his name was called. The teacher shrugged and told him to hand Takane her book instead. She smiled and thanked him as he did. For a second, he wondered why he even felt the need to protect her. But before he could step away, Takane trapped his foot with hers under the desk and whispered, "Fix my plot armor properly." Shirota froze. With no other way, Shirota nervously used his leg to help fix Takane's plot armor, carefully sliding it back into place. His face turned bright red as he tried not to make a single mistake. Just then, the teacher suddenly called his name, startling him. He accidentally moved too fast, which made Takane let out a soft scream, just like my second girlfriend. Everyone looked up, but she quickly smiled and said she was fine. After class, Shirota met her in the student council room. Still embarrassed, he said, "You're unbelievable." Takane just smiled and replied, "I was only testing you to see what you can handle." Shirota sighed and asked, "What would you have done if I hadn't helped you back there?" She casually said she didn't really think about it because she completely trusted him to take care of it. Her words caught him off guard. Then she tilted her head and asked, "So why did you help me? Why save me from being embarrassed?" Shirota couldn't find an answer. He looked away, not sure what to say. Takane smirked and teased, "Maybe it's because you want to be the only one who sees my plot armor, huh?" He quickly denied it, stuttering, but she could tell from his face that she was right. Laughing softly, she said, "Knowing that you're that obsessed with me actually makes me kind of happy." Flustered, Shirota tried to change the topic and asked about the sound she made earlier in class. Her smile vanished, and she gave him a cold glare. "Never bring that up again," she ordered. After class, the teacher asked Takane to take the exam papers back to the lab. She agreed with a bright smile, and instantly, all the beta males in class, offering to carry them for her. She kept smiling politely as she turned each one down, but deep inside, she was getting annoyed. The reason? That clueless Shirota still hadn't realized what he was supposed to do. Annoyed, she secretly rewound time to give him another chance. But even then, he didn't get it. Takane finally gave him a sharp glare until he remembered his role as her assistant. Jumping in quickly, Shirota volunteered to help. In the hallway, Takane scolded him in a serious tone for making her use her power just to remind him of his job. Shirota bowed his head, apologizing, as he helped fix her plot armor back into place. After that, they continued walking toward the lab, but soon their path was blocked by more students eager to help Takane. Shirota couldn't believe how popular she was. To everyone else, she looked like a perfect goddess. Watching her, he thought that if he had even a small part of her charm, his life would be much easier. To his surprise, Takane spoke warmly to everyone who stopped her, remembering small details about their lives, like their clubs, birthdays, and favorite snacks. Later, Shirota tried to make small talk, saying she was amazing at handling so many people at once. Takane frowned and snapped, "Don't compare me to some random actress who tries to please everyone. Even if I were one, I'd still be number one." Her response left Shirota stunned, so he quickly corrected himself, saying he just admired how good she was at talking to people. Takane smiled proudly and said that it was part of her duty as student council president. When Shirota asked how she remembered everyone's names, she casually said she learned them all in just one day after becoming president. She added that, since everyone knows her, she has to know everyone, too, otherwise, she'd lose. Shirota was amazed by how competitive she was, but at the same time, he respected her drive and wondered what truly pushed her to keep going so hard. Then, Takane said she knew every student's details, even his. She began listing things about Shirota, like where he lived, what he liked, and which anime hub videos he is watching. He thought no one knew. Shirota was shocked and red-faced, asking if she really knew this much about everyone. That question made her stop. Her look turned cold. "Are you saying I'm a stalker?" she asked sharply. Before he could speak, she smirked and added, "You also have a habit of acting all innocent when you're not. Deep down, you're kind of a naughty one, aren't you?" Shirota froze at her words. Takane leaned closer and softly asked, "Am I wrong?" Flustered, he turned away, saying he wouldn't answer and that she wouldn't want him looking at her like some creep anyway. Her pride stung. Takane kicked his leg, making him fall to the floor. Standing above him, she smirked again and said, "Then what if I like it when you look at me?" Shirota's mind, monkey brain, crashed again. The school's goddess was teasing him again, slightly unbuttoning her shirt just to see his nosebleed reaction. Panicking, Shirota blurted out that he'd only answer her question if they were actually in a relationship. Takane blinked in surprise, then laughed loudly, not expecting such an honest reply. Dropping her teasing tone, she sat beside him and softly asked what he meant by a couple. Shirota flinched and quickly said he didn't mean it seriously, which only made her laugh more. She stood up with a smile and said she liked his answer before walking away, leaving him completely confused. He thought about running after her, but before he could, he tripped on the stairs and rolled down. When he opened his eyes again, he was lying in the nurse's office, with his head resting on Takane's lap. Shocked, he asked what happened, and she explained that he had fallen. Out of kindness, she said she turned back time and carried him there herself. When he thanked her, Takamine gently pushed his head back down and said this would be his new profile, her personal pillow. When he resisted, she smirked and called him a weak V-card holder who has zero experience with girls, just like some of you guys. But added that it meant he was a serious guy. For a moment, things felt oddly peaceful between them. That calm didn't last long. Takamine ruined it by casually mentioning she wasn't wearing any plot armor. Shirota jumped up instantly, face bright red. Realizing it was already after school, he panicked. He had missed his makeup gym test, and now had to redo the running laps. Wanting to prove himself, he said he wanted to win at least once in something. His determination made Takamine smile, and she decided to watch his remedial test. However, she didn't plan on making it easy. Halfway through, Shirota was falling behind, so Takamine stopped him, pointing out his poor running form. The close distance and her sweaty, see-through shirt made him even more nervous. She ordered him to finish in under 30 minutes, but despite her cheering, he failed. Annoyed, she said they'd keep trying until he succeeded. She removed her plot armor and rewound time again. This time, Shirota barely kept up but tried harder. Meanwhile, Takamine followed beside him on a bike, purposely showing off to tease him. Panicking, he ran faster, not wanting anyone else to see her like that, and somehow, he crossed the finish line first. Smiling, Takamine reminded him he had one last duty. Behind the trees, he helped her put her peach cover back on. She teased him, asking how it felt to finally win within 30 minutes. Out of breath, he realized he had done it without noticing. For once, he felt proud. Even if it was just a small test, it meant something to him. Seeing his honest smile, Takamine chuckled softly before heading home. That night, Shirota suddenly remembered that Takamine's bag, filled with her plot armor, was still with him. He planned to give it back the next morning, but holding it made his imagination go wild, like clap 6-9 times. Before he could even look inside, his phone buzzed. It was Takamine. She ordered him to bring her bag right away, because she wanted to go jogging. Shirota hesitated, thinking she was testing him again. But then she sent another photo, which can melt any Sigma male, joking that she'd run outside without her plot armor if he didn't answer. Panicking, he dashed out of the house to meet her. A few minutes later, another message came, a picture from a nearby park, with a random guy standing behind her, looking her way. Shirota's heart raced, imagining something bad happening to her. In truth, Takamine had only planned to tease him and then pretend to apologize before heading home. But when Shirota actually showed up, she secretly felt happy, though she hid it behind her usual proud smirk. She complimented him for coming so fast and said he was learning his place as her helper. Shirota frowned and said it wasn't about following orders, he just didn't want anything to happen to her, especially since without her plot armor, she couldn't rewind time. His honest words caught her off guard. For a second, she looked touched, but she quickly covered it with a tease, asking if he had imagined her being with someone else. Flustered, he denied it, saying he was just worried. Her playful smile softened into a real one as she quietly thanked him. She admitted he was the only person who truly cared about her, and since he knew her secret, that made him special. Her words felt both sweet and teasing, but Shirota couldn't stop smiling. For the first time, he felt close to her, not just as her helper, but as someone who truly understood her. That night, he silently promised himself that he'd always keep an eye on her. The next day in swim class, Takamine dove into the pool and stunned everyone with her speed. She easily beat Uko, the star of the swim team, the same girl who once trained overseas with real Olympic swimmers. When Takamine stepped out of the water, drops rolled down her skin like glitter, and the entire class stared at her. And also, guys, everybody, baby Johnny wakes up. Even Shirota froze on the spot, completely speechless. Before anyone could cheer, Takamine casually said she wanted to redo the race. Without hesitation, she activated her power, and time rewound. The race started again, but this time she swam on her back, giving everyone a perfect view of her. OF content in real-time form gliding across the pool. Guys, this make my editing hard again.
What do you mean by that?
Shirota didn't understand why she repeated the race, but the whole scene looked so mesmerizing, he forgot to breathe. After winning again, Takamine walked straight up to him, still dripping with water, and asked why he hadn't asked her reason for doing it again. Shirota, flustered, said he didn't have time to think about it. Smiling playfully, she said she just wanted to leave a memory no one would ever forget, something that would make her the topic of every guy's night dreams. Then, with her usual teasing tone, she asked which version of her swim caught his attention more. Shirota froze completely. Tell me in the comments, guys, which one you like. If he answered honestly, It would sound like he had been staring at her, but his red face gave him away before he said anything. Tain laughed softly and said his eyes had already told her everything she needed to know. Trying to change the subject, he quickly asked how she managed to rewind time even though she wasn't wearing any plot protector. Tain proudly explained that this time, she sacrificed one of her peach covers to use her ability. The thought alone made Shirota's face turn bright red. His brain short-circuited at the idea of her wearing only one piece of plot armor, and he instantly looked away, trying his best not to pass out from that nosebleed. After class, Tain leaned close to Shirota's ear and whispered for him to stay behind. That evening, she dragged him to the mall, saying she needed new plot covers. Shirota followed nervously, sweating the whole time and unsure where to look. When he asked why he even had to come, Tain smiled and reminded him that he was her helper now, so he had no choice. Just to tease him, she asked which set she should buy. Shirota tried to avoid eye contact and muttered that anyone was fine, but she didn't let him off that easy. She told him to pick. Panicking, he randomly grabbed one from the shelf. Unfortunately, it was the most flashy and ridiculous one in the entire store. Tain laughed out loud, holding it against herself and striking a pose like a model. Completely embarrassed, Shirota rushed to grab another one, a plain white pair, saying it made her look like pure soul. Then, unsure, he switched to a black one because it matched her dark side. Because guys, he think every girl is evil, just like X. Next, he picked pink for her softer cute personality, but in the end, he panicked again and went with blue. When Tain asked why, he mumbled that he didn't really know. Smiling slyly, Tain grabbed his hand and pulled him into the changing room. Shirota panicked instantly, saying he shouldn't be there. But she looked at him with that teasing grin and said, "Then kneel. You're the one helping me put these on." His face turned bright red. She lifted her skirt slightly, revealing that she was wearing thick tights, so he couldn't actually see anything. Even so, his heart pounded as he helped her pull up the fabric, catching a soft floral scent that made his head spin. Overwhelmed, Shirota fainted right then and there. Later, when he came to, Takamine asked again why he had chosen the blue one. Shirota tried to dodge the question, but she pinned him against the wall, demanding an answer. Nervously, he blurted out that he chose it because she reminded him of the blue sky, far above his reach, and the blue sea deep and impossible to forget. Tain went silent. When the elevator stopped at her floor, she stepped out without saying a word, leaving Shirota worried that she was upset. But then, she stopped, her face slightly red, and quietly said that if she wore the blue pair, her power EVR might not work anymore. The next day, Shirota caught a bad cold and looked exhausted during class. After school, he tried to go straight home, but Tain insisted on walking him since she lived nearby. When they reached his place, she was surprised to see his room, so tidy and no tissue there. Without warning, she opened his laptop, checking for a hidden file named Anime Hub. Shirota quickly slammed it shut, face red. Laughing, Tain said she needed to take care of her assistant before he became useless. When she asked if he ate properly and he admitted he didn't, she offered to cook. He tried to refuse, but she ignored him completely. With a teasing smile, she asked if she should cook wearing only an apron or even wipe his sweat while doing it. Embarrassed, Shirota lost his patience and pushed her out, saying he could handle himself. But a moment later, time rewound. Suddenly, a warm bowl of rice sat on his table with a clean towel beside it. Tain proudly said she made it using his kitchen and promised to reheat the towel if it cooled down. As he ate, Shirota couldn't understand her. How could someone tease him non-stop yet still be so caring? Later that night, as he lay in bed, Tain quietly entered his room again. She asked if he liked the food. He said yes, but before he could say more, she slipped into bed beside him. When he panicked, she explained that body warmth helped with fevers. He told her it wasn't necessary, but she rewound time again to make herself completely fresh. She leaned close and asked, "Would you prefer if I smelled sweeter?" Shirota sighed and turned away, but Tain cuddled up to him, saying he should just think of her as a warm water bottle. His heart pounded, being this close to the school's most hottest girl. Yet for the first time, Tain's teasing faded, and she gently apologized for going too far. She pulled his head to her plot armor, and said it would help him relax and sleep better. "Guys, you and me also deserves that kind of peace." She warned him not to get any weird ideas, saying it was purely for his health. But Shirota didn't feel anything strange, only warmth and peace. Quietly, he asked if she was only being kind so he wouldn't leave her. The question caught her off guard, her heart racing, but before she could answer, he had already fallen asleep. On her way home, Tain saw kids running by and thought about her lonely childhood. Back then, she had no friend. One day, while feeding a stray black cat, Shirota had appeared and offered the cat some milk. From that moment, she began liking him, though he never remembered. Back home, she petted that same cat, now named Kuro, whispering about how foolish Shirota was for thinking her kindness was just duty when, in truth, she cared about him deeply. A few days later, on their way to school, Takamine casually mentioned the homework due that morning. Shirota froze in panic. He thought it was summer work and hadn't touched it at all. Takamine sighed, shaking her head like she felt sorry for the teacher who had to deal with someone as clueless as him. With a smug smile, she offered to help, but only if he promised to be her loyal servant and bark for her like a good pet. Shirota frowned at her teasing, but her reminder about his awful grades hit him hard. Taking a deep breath, he said he'd handle it himself and work hard through class and lunch to finish. Takamine smirked and wished him luck but reminded him not to forget his assistant duties. Later in class, Shirota focused all his energy on catching up. Takamine was asked to write something on the board, but when the teacher accidentally bumped into her, her perfect image wobbled for a second. Shirota expected her to rewind time to fix it, yet, to his surprise, she didn't. She simply smiled and continued writing as if nothing had happened. Later, while Shirota kept working, another girl thanked Takamine for suggesting a watch as a gift for her crush. The girl then mentioned that a new model had come out right after she bought it. Takamine paused, thinking about changing the past, but instead told her to just exchange it, refusing to use her power. By the end of the day, Shirota finally finished his work but saw Takamine stumbling weakly in the hallway. He rushed over, alarmed. She brushed it off, saying it was just a small fever, but her exhausted face told the truth. Holding back, her powers was taking a toll on her body. Before collapsing, she admitted she hadn't rewound time because she didn't want to disturb him while he was studying. Realizing this, Shirota urged her to use her power to heal, but she shook her head. She warned him that if she did, his finished homework would vanish. Without hesitation, Shirota told her it didn't matter, he could redo everything, and he'd rather see her smile again. His words made her blush faintly. As her skirt lifted slightly, he gently slid her peach cover down to activate her power. But instead of resetting the whole day, Takamine only rolled time back a few seconds, stopping right before she fell. Standing proudly, she said she wouldn't rewind time just because he told her to. As they walked down the stairs together, Takamine promised to check his work next time so he wouldn't struggle again, and for once, her teasing tone softened, showing real care behind her words. When summer vacation started, Takamine asked Shirota to come over so she could help him study. The two of them were alone, but you are alone with your lonely life. And she corrected his answers, using her power to rewind time whenever he made a mistake. After a while, she went to make coffee and mentioned that her parents were gone for a few days. Her words stuck in Shirota's head until she came back and leaned close again, showing him another wrong answer. As she moved, her shirt lifted a little, her plot armor slipped, and time reset once more. During their study session, Takamine teased him, saying he was acting dumb on purpose just to stay at her house. His nervous face made her laugh even more. She then said they weren't really alone, her cat Kuro was still around. Since Shirota couldn't keep pets, he said he wanted to see it. Takamine smiled softly and said maybe Kuro missed him too. But when she came back, she said she couldn't find the cat. Instead, she walked in wearing cat ears, saying she would be Kuro's stand-in and act like a kitty. Shirota's face turned red, saying she was going too far, but she crouched down like a cat, crawling on all fours and making soft meow sounds. Shirota's heart nearly got a heart attack as she got closer. Then she sat in his lap and said she wouldn't stop until she felt satisfied. By the time his homework was done, the sky had already gone dark. He complained that her teasing slowed him down, but she looked outside and warned it might rain. He didn't believe her until he opened the door and saw heavy rain pouring down. Calmly, she told him to stay the night. She said there was food, a futon, and a bathroom ready for him, even offering to wash his back as a joke. Before he could say anything, they heard scratching at the door. It was Kuro. Takamine smiled and brought the cat inside, expecting Shirota to remember something, but he only petted it like nothing was special. She hid her sadness behind her usual calm face. Then the power went out, and the room turned dark. Acting casual, Takamine sat on the bed and told him to tell a story to pass time. When he struggled, she told him to talk about school memories. He talked about playing games with his friends, but she grew quiet and looked upset that he didn't remember more. When he asked for water, she drank the whole bottle in anger. Trying again, he shared a few silly stories, including an old nickname, but she didn't react. When he asked to use the shower, she came back wrapped in a towel, saying he couldn't use it anymore, then lay down facing the wall. ignoring him. Guys, how he is holding back. Tell me, would you hold back if you are there? Feeling bad, Shirota thought hard. Then he remembered something important. A stray cat he used to take care of with a short-haired girl. He said he often brought towels and umbrellas to help the cat when it rained. Takamine turned to him and asked what happened to that girl. Shirota said she once told him she liked him, but he never answered, and both she and the cat disappeared. He said he still felt bad about it and never even learned her name. Takamine, who was that same girl, looked at him quietly, hoping he would figure it out. Instead, he asked if she knew who that girl was. She felt sad for a moment but quickly smiled again, hiding her feelings, and softly told him she was glad he at least remembered that much. Suddenly, thunder boomed outside, making Takamine jump so hard that her towel slipped loose. Another flash of lightning hit, and she instinctively leaped onto Shirota in fear. In that moment, he finally understood she wasn't trying to tease him. She was scared of thunder and had used studying as an excuse to keep him close. Lying on top of him, her voice trembled as she whispered that she wanted to forget what just happened. Since her powers didn't work on him, she asked if he could just erase the memory himself. Still shaking, she stayed in his arms, and for the first time, Shirota saw a side of Takamine no one else ever had: soft, frightened, and human. When the lights came back, she quickly stood, wrapped herself again, and said she'd make something to eat. Shirota tried to tell her it wasn't necessary, but she brushed it off, saying she wasn't doing it for him, though she'd still make his share if he played along. Then, grinning, she suggested they pretend to be a married couple. The rule was simple: if either refused, they'd stay single forever.
Damn!
Shirota groaned at the idea, but Takamine loved it, calling it a perfect game for a guy she could easily tease. With that, she headed to the kitchen. When Shirota peeked in to check on her, his heart nearly stopped. Takamine in an apron looked like a real-life dessert, which you can't eat in your whole life. Before he could speak, she smiled and told him to act like her loving husband. Flustered, he asked her to wear her peach protector, but she laughed and said he should help her. He nervously covered her with a piece of plot armor, trying not to look directly at her. She then asked him to stir the soup, but Shirota was so distracted that he burned it. Sighing, Takamine rewound time and scolded him gently for not paying attention. After a few retries, dinner was ready. When Shirota complimented her cooking, she smiled warmly, sat close beside him, and said she wanted to feed him like couples do. His hands shook as she brought the spoon to his mouth. Just then, a bit of soup spilled onto her legs. Worried it might burn, Shirota jumped up, but Takamine grinned mischievously and joked that he should clean it off so the flavor wouldn't go to waste. His face turned red, but before anything else happened, she rewound time again, laughing and saying it was only a joke, that she still had some pride left. Shirota slumped in confusion, not sure what was real anymore. After dinner, Takamine offered to prepare the bath. He volunteered to wash the dishes so she could go first, but she refused and teased that they should bathe together like a couple. His shocked reaction made her burst out laughing as she said, "Relax, it's another joke." Later that night, Shirota finally relaxed in the bath, looking for the soap. Suddenly, the door opened and Takamine stepped in, wrapped only in a towel and smiling playfully. She said that just because she liked to joke didn't mean she ever stopped. Walking around him with teasing eyes, she joked that he might be tempted to use her shampoo in strange ways. Before he could say anything, she let her towel fall, revealing a bright, flashy swimsuit that was definitely too much for a nerdy boy like him. Shirota jumped in shock and tried to leave, but she stopped him, saying she wanted to help wash his back. She called it practice for when she became a wife someday. He froze, amazed by how easily she imagined the future, but she laughed and said it was her way of thanking him for staying over. Reluctantly, he agreed, warning her not to push it too far. Inside, he tried hard to stay calm, counting numbers in his head as she rubbed soap on his back with her hands. His focus broke when something soft pressed against him, only to see her holding 2 water balloons, laughing at his panic. Once she finished his back, she moved to his shoulders, saying it was time for shampoo. Shirota quickly reminded her she promised only his back, but she replied she never said which part was off limits. She washed his hair gently, her movements slow and careful. When she mentioned the shampoo was hers, he suddenly realized he would smell like her after this. His face turned red, and he panicked, trying to stop her. In his flustered movement, his hand brushed her plot armor. Both froze for a moment before Takamine smirked and teased him about losing control. Embarrassed, he jumped straight into the tub to hide. Seeing what he was trying to cover, Takamine smiled faintly, said her mission was complete, and left the room, leaving him sitting there red-faced and confused. Later that night, lying in the guest room, Shirota couldn't stop replaying what happened in the bathroom. He wondered how Tain could push things that far without even blushing. Also, he is thinking what would be the perfect position. Tell me in the comments, guys, what is your favorite position? His thoughts were cut short when she knocked on the door, telling him to set an alarm, then walked in without waiting. She jumped onto him, wearing a thin nightgown that made his face turn bright red. Leaning close, she teased that she would always be the one on top. In that moment, Shirota realized something. All her teasing and boldness were her way of taking back control after he saw her weaker side earlier. A few days later, the summer festival arrived. Tain took him along, saying she needed to patrol for misbehaving students to prevent accidents. Before they started, she casually mentioned she'd forgotten her plot armor, shocking Shirota. He tried to talk her out of it, but she suddenly pretended her sandal broke, giving him an excuse to follow her somewhere quiet to fix things in secret. As night fell and fireworks drew near, she pulled him through the crowd to find a better view. Along the way, Shirota overheard people whispering that they didn't look like a couple, that someone like her was way out of his league. Strangely, the words made his heart race. For a second, he wondered what it would be like if it were true, if Tain were softer, sweeter, and actually wanted to spend time with him. His thoughts were interrupted when the first fireworks lit up the sky. Tain sighed, saying the spot wasn't good enough, then rewound time to try another place. At the bridge, they saw couples are lip-to-lip wrestle. Shirota's mind drifted, imagining them doing the same. He is acting just like you, who is 40-year-old V-card holder. When Tain asked for a drink, he hesitated, thinking she wanted that, but instead, she asked for help with her plot armor again. They repeated the same thing at several spots, each rewind making Tain more tired. Eventually, the crowd disappeared, and it was just the two of them standing alone beneath the night sky. That's when Shirota understood she wasn't rewinding for school duty anymore. She was doing it to relive little moments that felt like a real date. He turned to look at her, and at that exact moment, the fireworks burst behind her, lighting her face in soft colors. His breath caught. He couldn't tell if it was her or the fireworks that looked more beautiful. Tain smiled gently and said, "This time, it's perfect." Shirota nodded quietly, saying it was beautiful too, though he wasn't sure if he meant the fireworks or her. For once, she smiled back softly, her expression calm and warm, and said that she was happy, too. A few days after the festival, Tain asked Shirota to come with her to the school's open house. She wanted to visit Aku Academy, a top school for geniuses like her. Just thinking about it made Shirota nervous, since he knew he wasn't smart enough for a place like that. On the way, she asked what he wanted to do after graduation. He said he hadn't figured it out yet. Tain frowned, saying that was the wrong answer. He should have said he'd follow her anywhere. She didn't care what he chose, as long as he stayed by her side as her helper. To Shirota, that just sounded like she wanted him in the same college. She added that if he met her terms, everything would be fine, but to him, it didn't sound like freedom at all. While they were talking, she suddenly started a video call and showed off her new plot armor outfit, which was more revealing than usual. Shirota nearly dropped his phone in shock. She laughed, reminding him that he was the one who picked something like that before. Then, teasingly, she tilted the camera, leaving him speechless. Joking around, Tain said maybe in college she'd find bad boys to spoil her. Shirota panicked and told her not to joke like that. Grinning, she said if he didn't want that to happen, he'd better get into her college too. As a reward, she promised he'd be the only one allowed to see her like this. He tried to argue, saying his grades weren't high enough to pass. Before he could finish, her cat Kuro jumped on the desk and knocked her phone down, ending the call. A moment later, he got a text from her, "If you don't get into my college, you'll pay for it." A few days later, they met again at Aku Academy. Shirota got there first, and when Tain arrived, everyone turned to stare. Even in simple clothes, she looked stunning. Catching him staring, she teased him again. Flustered, he turned away, pretending not to hear. Tain stood in front of him and said her college life depended on him since he was the one who handled her peach covers. She'd be in trouble without him. If someone caught her changing, it could cause a scandal. Shirota said that made no sense, since she could just use the bathroom. She paused, impressed by his logic, but disappointed her tease didn't work. Changing topics, she asked again about his plans. He said he might start working instead of studying. Surprised, she asked why. Shirota explained that his little sister would be starting school soon, and he didn't want to put more pressure on his parents. He said he'd rather work hard and support them. Takamine was quietly impressed by his maturity, but still smiled and said he could work part-time while in college because no matter what, she wasn't letting him get away from her that easily. When the campus orientation started, Takamine looked a little off at first, but she quickly pulled herself together and joined the event. After the presentation ended, she confidently raised her hand and asked what benefits came from graduating there. Everyone stared in surprise at such a bold question. The lecturer calmly explained that top students could earn special certificates, and in some cases, recommendation letters for jobs. Takamine nodded but didn't seem satisfied. A moment later, she quietly rewound time and changed her question, asking instead about the rewards for being the best graduate at the university. Even though the answer was nearly the same, she looked more cheerful afterward. Curious, Shirota asked what had changed. She smiled and explained that she had just been more specific, saying university instead of institution. Then, out of nowhere, she told him it was time to help her with her peach cover again. Shirota froze, clearly stressed, but Takamine reassured him that no one would notice because of the table's shape hiding them underneath. With no choice, he knelt down and adjusted it quickly. Takamine, amused, teased him and lightly pressed his head between her legs, telling him to fix it properly before letting him go. Later, while walking home, Shirota admitted he enjoyed seeing the campus, but he still didn't get why she bothered to change her question. Takamine explained that she aimed to be perfect, a goddess of knowledge, and for her, details mattered. More importantly, she said she wanted to make the most out of him while they were still together in school. Shirota laughed nervously, saying he thought she wanted to chain him forever. Takamine chuckled and said she wasn't a tyrant, it was just a joke. Still, she warned him not to relax because she'd keep using him for as long as she could. Her words made Shirota go quiet. He thought he should feel relieved that she might set him free someday, but instead, his chest tightened. The idea of being apart from her didn't sound like freedom anymore, it sounded lonely. The next morning at school, Shirota can't stop thinking about how sad Takamine looked yesterday. When he greets her, she instantly switches back to her usual confident self, but something still feels strange. Her skirt looks uneven, and a few students nearby are secretly taking pictures. When he quietly warns her, she insists it's intentional, though she quickly fixes it, almost like she's worried he doesn't want anyone else staring. As they keep walking, Shirota notices she's only wearing one sock, which makes him even more suspicious. Later, on the train, he realizes something's really off. Takamine, who's always perfect, seems distracted and fidgety. Then, he notices the movement of her shirt and realizes she's not wearing any plot armor at all. Before he can say anything, she catches him staring, and as the train doors close, part of her shirt gets caught, pulling slightly down. Shirota freezes, remembering that anyone who sees her hidden divine secrets becomes immune to her powers. Thinking fast, he covers her with his hands before anyone else can look. Takamine reacts instantly, snapping her fingers and resetting the entire day back to morning. When Shirota finds himself reliving the same events, he realizes she rewound time just to undo that moment. It dawns on him that, even though she treats him like her servant, the idea of losing him must have shaken her. Quietly, he makes a decision. He'll join a cram school and study hard to get into Aku University, just to stay by her side. But as he enters the cram school, ready to give his all, fate surprises him again. He bumps into a beautiful blonde girl who looks like a cheerful anime version of Hot Blonde Girl. She gasps, then her face lights up, and before he can react, she hugs him tight. "It's me, Ellie." She laughs. After signing up, they walk together, catching up after 5 years apart. Shirota remembers her as his energetic childhood friend, who used to tease him for being short. Ellie laughs, noticing how much he's grown, proudly saying she's been doing some anime hub modeling lately. When he says he's free, she drags him straight to the old park, where they used to play. At the fountain, nostalgia hits Shirota. It's the same place where he once met Takamine, though the memory feels fuzzy now. Ellie grabs his hand, grinning, asking if he wants to have a water balloon fight like old times. Embarrassed, he says they're not kids anymore. But she ignores him and runs off to fill up balloons anyway. Her playful energy fills the air as she starts making oversized ones until one bursts in her hands, soaking her completely. Laughing, she brushes it off, grinning mischievously. "No worries, I'm not even wearing any plot armor today," she jokes. That line almost makes Shirota faint, and in a panic, he blurts out that they should just grab some ice cream instead. On the way to the shop, Shirota can't shake off the feeling of worry. Ellie is too carefree, running around with no sense of danger, and he knows if Takamine ever saw this scene, she'd lose her mind. When he returns with a towel and 2 ice cream cones, Ellie casually lifts her shirt to show she's already dry, almost flashing everyone in the park. Shirota nearly drops the cones, frantically begging her to stop before she causes a scandal. She just laughs and says it's fine after all. She only does it for him since their bond is deeper than any ordinary friendship. They sit under a tree, and Ellie curiously asks which college he plans to go to. Shirota admits he's not sure if he'll even attend one. He remembers Tain telling him to enter the same university as her, but with money being tight, it feels impossible. Hearing that, Ellie tilts her head and bluntly asks if he's dating that girl. Startled, Shirota stammers and denies it, but Ellie smirks, easily reading the truth from his reaction. Teasing him, she jokes that he must be dreaming about romantic adventures with that girl. Shirota tries to change the subject and jokes back that any girl who invites him to her school must secretly like him. Ellie, amused, offers him her ice cream, but it melts and drips down his neck. Without hesitation, she leans in and licks it off, making Shirota's brain crash on the spot. She laughs at his panicked face, saying, "Relax, girls do that all the time." His mind instantly spirals into chaos, imagining the worst possible crossover between Ellie and Tain. And as if summoned by his guilt, Tain suddenly appears behind him. Her glare freezes him in place, but it quickly shifts into that smug, teasing grin she always wears. "Wow, Shirota," she says, flirting in public now. He blurts out that she was supposed to be resting. Tain crosses her arms, proudly declaring she's perfectly fine. Then her voice hardens as she demands to know who this hot blonde is. Instead of being offended, Ellie beams with pride, thrilled at the comparison. She holds up a leftover balloon, trying to explain that they were just playing around. But Takane's face turns red, clearly imagining something else entirely. Knowing Shirota is too shy to do anything daring, Tain turns to Ellie, asking her true intentions. Both insist it was harmless fun, but Tain's imagination runs wild again. When Ellie innocently invites her to join, Tain blushes furiously, picturing something completely inappropriate, which the trio contains. Flustered, Shirota blurts out that he didn't mean to make her wet, which only makes it worse. Tain huffs and fires back that he doesn't have the guts to make her feel that way anyway. When Ellie runs off to refill more balloons, Shirota nervously asks if she's okay with all this. Instead of answering, she slaps him across the face, scolding him for being a playboy and reminding him to focus on his studies instead of playing around, lecturing him like his mom. As Shirota sinks into guilt, Ellie rushes back and admits it was her idea all along. Seeing the bunch of balloons in her hand, Tain finally realizes her mistake. Ellie introduces herself properly, and Tain remembers her as the cheerful girl who used to play with Shirota. Feeling awkward, Tain starts to leave, but Ellie insists she stay and sends Shirota to get drinks. While alone, Ellie apologizes, explaining she's not great at reading the mood since she went to an all-girls school. She says it's normal for girls to get defensive when someone else is close to the boy they like, then compliments Tain's beauty. When Tain tries to deny liking Shirota, Ellie giggles and says her eyes already gave it away. When Shirota returns, Tain warns Ellie to keep quiet. Ellie agrees, saying she has a photo shoot and waves goodbye, teasing that she'll see Shirota at cram school. Once she's gone, Tain turns suspicious, accusing him of joining just to flirt. Panicking, Shirota explains he joined to study harder and get into her college. The honesty makes her heart race, though she hides it behind annoyance that Ellie found out first. With a sigh, Tain removes her plot armor and rewinds time. This time, she demands a thank you instead of arguing, handing him her peach cover and telling him to fix it. While he does, she softly admits she only goes this far because he's working so hard for her. Then she grabs his hand, grinning that she'll take him home to drain his brain energy with study drills. That night, Shirota tries focusing while Takane watches him closely, holding Kuro in her lap. She smiles, saying he's working for her sake. Days later, after class, Shirota leaves with Ellie and meets Tain, who invites them to hang out. Ellie suggests her favorite restaurant. The waiter greets Ellie warmly, and she orders for everyone, promising to pay. Tain quietly says she's on a diet, so Ellie compliments her perfect figure. When the food arrives, Tain only sips tea, while Ellie's plate looks like a 5-year-old kid. While they eat, Takane asks how the day's class went. Shirota says the tutor is great and easy to follow, plus having Ellie there makes studying fun. That comment stings a little, especially when Ellie adds that they used to study together before. Trying to stay calm, Tain asks if he just likes studying with girls since he once studied alone with her at her house. Shirota panics, but before he can explain, Ellie laughs, saying it makes sense since Tain is clearly a genius. Ellie admits she and Shirota used to play too much and skip homework, unlike Takamine, who always takes things seriously. Scoffing, Takamine says she can't help it, even when surrounded by idiots. Then she slips up, mentioning she once wore cat ears just to help Shirota study. He nearly chokes, insisting that was her idea, but Ellie finds it adorable and suggests a study session with a sleepover. Shirota agrees only if it's for actual studying, but Ellie teases that they used to have sleepovers as kids. Tain quickly cuts in, saying that's risky, and twists the story claiming Shirota once stayed during the rain, and they ended up bumping into each other. Horrified, he tries to defend himself, but she stomps his foot to shut him up. Ellie just laughs, and Tain adds that Ellie only knows the innocent Shirota, not the real one. He panics, but she smirks, claiming she knows him best. Ellie quietly catches her tone and realizes there's more between them. After dinner, Ellie pulls Tain aside while Shirota leaves. She apologizes, saying she isn't trying to take Shirota, since she already has someone special and actually, she prefers Tain more. Shocked, Takamine freezes until Ellie walks away hand in hand with the same waiter from earlier. Only then does Takamine realize Ellie's heart leans toward girls. Not guys, I think guys. That's the reason for most of the boys are single. When Tain meets Shirota again, he instantly asks what she and Ellie talked about earlier. With a sly smile, she jokes that they were gossiping about how much of a shameless guy he is. His face turns red, but she waves it off, calling it harmless girl talk. As they pass by the park, Tain notices one of Ellie's leftover balloons still in her bag. Smirking, she challenges Shirota to a water balloon match. Winner gets a favor. He hesitates, saying it's childish, but she pouts and asks why he was fine playing with Ellie and not with her. Feeling cornered, he gives in. Knowing he can't win against her and not wanting to ruin her dress, Shirota throws weakly. But Takamine, being herself, leaps right into one of his shots, drenching her clothes. Water trickles down as she glares at him, asking if he only saw a soaked girl that day or if it meant more. He freezes, stammering, which only irritates her. She launches all the balloons at once, soaking him head to toe. Proud of her victory, Tain smirks and declares her reward. She wants him to lick the sweat off her skin. Shirota almost faints, realizing she's trying to outdo Ellie's ice cream stunt. He begs her to stop since they're outdoors, but she teases harder, reminding him how Ellie licked him before. It clicks that she's jealous. Trying to calm her, he offers to lick her neck instead, but she grins and says that's too easy. She wants a spot warmer. Embarrassed yet powerless, Shirota finally gives in. They slip behind some trees, and Tain lifts her dress just a little. Blushing furiously, he picks her stomach instead, his hands trembling. As he leans forward, her skin feels soft and warm, and she bites her lip to stay quiet. When it's over, she tells him not to overthink it. She just missed spending time with him. Then, she softly apologizes for replacing his memories of Ellie, but that alone tells Shirota everything. She's jealous. The heat of the moment hits him, and he ends up collapsing with a fever. Days later, on the last day of summer, Tain takes Shirota on a small trip. She's helped him study non-stop, so he wants to thank her properly. While walking through town, he mentions wanting coffee, but she instantly pulls out her discount coupons and insists on paying. Even after he buys it, she rewinds time just so he'll use her coupon instead. Later, at a store, Tain points at a cute bunny doll, calling it adorable. Secretly, Shirota buys it and surprises her with it later. She blushes and says she'd rather be the one giving him something instead. When she asks what else he wants to do, he says a boat ride since he's never tried one before. Turns out, it's her first time too. As he rows, she pouts, wanting a turn. When he refuses, she jumps into the water, using her power to reset time again. This time, she quietly fixes her plot armor herself. When he teases her for it, she storms off, calling him too slow. He apologizes, thinking he ruined the day, but she shakes her head, saying he's too focused on working hard instead of enjoying life. She reminds him the trip was her way of thanking him for everything he's done. Realizing that, he smiles and thanks her sincerely for teaching him, helping him, and for just being there. The honesty catches her off guard, making her blush. Finally, Tain smiles and says that, for once, she'll let him lead the rest of the way. A few days later, Shirota is supposed to study with Tain, but on the way, he bumps into Ellie, who ends up tagging along. Soon, the three are sitting together in Tain's room. Ellie is thrilled to be there, gushing about how she's always wanted to study with her idol, while Tain quietly fumes. Finally, Tain loses her patience and snaps, asking why Ellie doesn't just go spend time with her girlfriend instead. Ellie shrugs, saying Rur has been busy lately, so she's bored. Tain mutters that if she wants to play, she should go find a playground. Unbothered, Ellie giggles, and Shirota suddenly recalls her saying she prefers girls. His hunch is confirmed when Ellie lightly pokes Takane's chest while asking a question. Instantly, Takane shoots up, glaring at her. She orders Shirota to go buy drinks, and though he protests, one sharp glare sends him running. When the door closes, Takane tells Ellie to leave, saying she doesn't have the time to babysit another idiot. Ellie just laughs and asks whether Takane is dating Shirota. Takane denies it flatly, but Ellie smirks, saying anyone could tell from her face. She teases that Shirota's hard to read a guy who always misses the hints. That hits a nerve, and Takane admits she's right. No matter what she does, he never notices how she feels. Surprised by her honesty, Ellie pretends to take it as a story about a friend. Playing along, Ellie asks what this friend has done for that guy. Takane, still keeping the act, lists everything from acting like a cat to that ridiculous bathroom, seen all the things she's done trying to get noticed. Ellie listens silently, trying not to show her jealousy. Takane says if a guy can't notice a woman like that, something's definitely wrong with him. When Ellie asks if this man has ever shown care in return, Takane pauses, thinking about the time Shirota rushed to her place, worried sick, and how he studies so hard just to stay beside her. Ellie finally breaks, shouting that anyone willing to do that is obviously in love. Takane goes still, realizing she never even mentioned his name. Yet Ellie guessed right. Then Takane narrows her eyes and asks if Ellie only came here to touch her body. Ellie grins, saying she couldn't help it. Takane is attractive to everyone, no matter the gender. With a sly smile, Takane crosses her arms and says she can touch again if she wants. When Shirota returns, he expects chaos, maybe a fight. But instead, he hears Takane scolding Ellie not to squeeze too hard, while Ellie gushes that it's so soft. Shirota's brain short-circuits until Ellie yells, "No, not there. I don't want to be licked." Horrified, he imagines the worst, until he peeks in and sees them both playing with Kuro, the cat. Days slipped by until the rainy season rolled in. On their way to school, Shirota and Takamine were relieved that the sky finally cleared, sparing their uniforms from another soaking. Takane joked that the rain worked in her favor. If she ever misplaced her plot protector, she could easily hide the issue beneath her blazer. Unlike in summer when everything was way too visible, that one comment made Shirota's brain short-circuit. He realized that whenever she wore that blazer, she might actually have nothing underneath. She caught him staring, tilted her head, and asked if her little story bored him. When he shook his head nervously, she smirked and decided to spice things up. She told him to turn around for a moment, and after rewinding time, she challenged him to a game. He had to guess which piece of her underwear had disappeared before they reached the station. Whoever lost would have to obey the other's orders. Shirota groaned to him. This was pure torture disguised as fun. Takane teased that he should use his pervert radar to detect the difference in her walk or the sound of fabric brushing. He yelled that he wasn't a psychic, but she just laughed. Then, she raised the stakes. If he won, she'd study wearing only a swimsuit. If she won, she'd tie him up and make him listen to her voice all night through headphones. That image nearly broke him. Still, Shirota tried to think carefully, even considering the puddles nearby as a chance to cheat. But guilt stopped him from looking. When they reached the station, Takane smiled playfully and demanded his answer. After a long pause, he guessed she'd lost her top. She burst out laughing and said, "Wrong, it's the bottom," teasing that he had plenty of chances to check, but never dared. When he admitted he couldn't bring himself to peek, Takane sighed softly, confessing that she actually hoped he would. She even passed by that puddle on purpose for him. Her words hit Shirota like lightning. She had wanted him to look. Later on the train, their conversation turned to the upcoming school festival. Their class was preparing a Cinderella play, and the teacher would soon assign roles. Shirota wished for something easy since last year he was just the guy holding the class sign. When he wondered how she knew, Takane proudly said she always keeps track of her servants' past and declared she'd be Cinderella herself. During class, she took charge, asking for volunteers. Naturally, everyone picked her for the lead, but when no one volunteered for the sound crew, Shirota reluctantly raised his hand only for Takane to rewind time, drag him to the front, and press him against the desk. His mind went blank as she leaned close and asked who wanted to be the prince. Almost every boy's hand shot up until Seiya, the most popular guy in school, stepped forward, instantly silencing the rest. Whispering, Takane said Seiya might make a decent second wardrobe carrier, smart, handsome, and blackmail ready. Horrified, Shirota signed up for the prince role before she could finish. Takane's eyes sparkled with delight, though it was clear Seiya's presence made Shirota act on impulse. When the votes were counted, Seiya easily won. On the way home, Shirota asked if she really planned to use Seiya as her backup. Tain laughed, saying it was bait to get him on stage. Since he lost, she named him the prince's guard instead, adding with a faint smile that she didn't want him stuck in the shadows this year. As festival week neared, practice became part of daily life. On the final day of preparation, anyone without a main role was moved to backstage duty. Tain personally assigned Shirota his task, sending her fan club into a jealous frenzy. He realized she had never acted this close to him in public before, which only made him more anxious. While painting scenery, he accidentally messed up the lighting. The others started muttering about him being useless, but before things could escalate, Tain rewound time. She pulled him behind the backdrop, scolding him herself while he nervously helped fix her outfit. When someone called her name, she poked her head out, leaving Shirota trembling as he tried not to mess up again. Just when he noticed her outfit still halfway on, she leapt forward to stop a falling board, smoothly adjusting everything mid-air like a pro. Shirota could only stare in awe as she calmly told him to keep working. By evening, the decorations were done. The moonlight spilled through the windows as Tain thanked the class and dismissed everyone except Shirota, asking him to follow her to the rooftop. Expecting another lecture, he was surprised when she simply leaned on the railing, gazing at the sky. She said she always loved the night before a festival quiet, peaceful, and full of hope, especially this year with her assistant beside her. She smiled softly, saying she wished they'd met back in their first year. Shirota realized she'd brought him here just to share the moment and promised he'd be there with her through college, no matter what. Tain grew silent, then admitted she once hated Cinderella. To her, waiting around for magic was pointless in real life. If you want something, you have to fight for it. Yet, she said, she understood that feeling of wanting something you can't quite reach. Slowly, she took his hand, her lips parting like she was about to confess, but a sudden sneeze ruined the moment. Completely missing the cue, Shirota laughed and said she should have told him sooner she wanted to head home. Her hands were cold, so he instinctively draped his jacket over her shoulders. Tain just smiled quietly and let the moment go. Under the glowing moonlight, the school festival finally arrived, filling the campus with laughter and color. Every classroom buzzed with energy, but off to one side, Shirota stood stiff and pale, nerves eating him alive. Spotting his misery, Tain grabbed his arm and dragged him out into the hall to explore other exhibits. Her sharp gaze alone was intimidating enough, yet holding her hand in public made it worse. Every fanboy nearby shot daggers at him like they were ready to bury him on the spot. Without slowing down, Tain pulled him straight into the haunted house. Shirota tried keeping a little space between them, so rumors wouldn't start flying, but the moment they stepped inside, he noticed her shoulders shaking. Remembering how terrified she was of thunder, he whispered that they could leave if she wanted. But too proud to admit fear, she forced a smile and claimed she wasn't scared at all. Seconds later, a ghost popped out of the dark. Tain screamed, instantly rewound time, and reset the scene. Shirota, trying not to laugh, gently offered again to go back out. But she puffed up her chest, pretending she'd only acted, scared to calm him down. Not even a minute later, another ghost appeared, and she shrieked again, another rewind. Now, suspicious, she stared straight at him and asked if he was cursed or something. He chuckled, nervously, insisting the ghosts were fake props. Determined not to back down, Tain pressed forward anyway. But when a ghost hand brushed her leg, and a fake spider dropped from above, she lost all composure. Screaming, she threw herself at Shirota, clutching his uniform so tight that her clothes nearly slipped out of place. At that unlucky moment, two girls wandered by the door. Thinking fast, Shirota grabbed a mask, posed as one of the ghosts, and hid Tain behind him until the girls left. When the coast cleared, she pulled away, cheeks flushed. Shirota apologized softly, realizing she'd gone through all this trouble just to help him forget his stage fright. Still catching her breath, Tain crossed her arms and said her fear was only an act. Then she pointed out that his quick ghost disguise proved he was getting better at thinking fast. Shirota could tell she was covering up her embarrassment, but he decided not to call her out on it. When they returned to class, the atmosphere had flipped into chaos. Seiya, the guy cast as the prince, was missing. Just as panic spread, the door slammed open and Seiya stumbled in, looking like he'd fallen off a roof. He tried to brush it off as nothing, but the blood he coughed up told another story. Teachers rushed him to the infirmary as the entire class freaked out. Turning to Tain, Shirota begged her to rewind time and fix it, but she stood still, face unreadable. Then, calmly, she declared they'd have to replace the prince instead. Everyone froze, stunned by how serious she sounded. With barely an hour before curtain, Takamine quickly announced that they'd cut one small roll the prince's guard and put Shirota in the lead. The words hit him like a punch, but he nodded anyway, accepting the role. Backstage, Shirota quietly repeated the lines to himself. He'd only practiced twice, but there was no turning back now. The curtain rose, lights flared, and the play began. During the first act, the stepmother took a sip of tea, grimaced, and spat it right onto Cinderella's dress. The crowd gasped as the liquid splashed across her gown, almost exposing her massive plots. A wave of whistles and cheers erupted. Even Ellie, usually Takamine's biggest admirer, bit her lip in frustration, watching the scene play out. From the side of the stage, the whole class watches in awe as the crowd erupts with cheers. When the stepmother and her daughters exit, Takamine steps forward, her voice soft and sorrowful as she sings Cinderella's lonely song. The fairy godmother enters, grants her wish, and the curtain falls. Moments later, when it rises again, Takamine stands center stage in a sparkling gown that makes the audience gasp. Backstage, Shirota's stomach twists. His cue is next. A classmate gives him a quick pat on the shoulder, whispering for him to do his best. Then Takamine turns, flashing a confident smile, and tells him simply, "Just have fun." Those words hit him harder than expected. They remind him of that night on the rooftop when she said she wanted to enjoy the festival together. Taking a deep breath, Shirota walks out under the bright lights. But as soon as hundreds of eyes lock on him, his mind goes blank. Not a single word escapes his mouth. Seeing his panic, Takamine instantly rewinds time, pulling him off stage before anyone notices. In the changing room, she crosses her arms and gives him a scolding for losing focus. She tells him not to worry about the audience, no one's really watching him anyway, and that he should just keep his eyes on her. Her tone is sharp, but Shirota feels the warmth behind her words. When the time resets, he steps out again, calmer this time. Facing Takamine, he delivers his line, "May I have this dance?" She smiles gracefully and nods. Relief washes over him as the crowd claps for their chemistry. As the lights dim for her solo, he kneels beside her, quietly, helping her adjust her outfit back into place before the next scene begins. When the spotlights return, everything flows perfectly. The story moves toward its final act, the prince visiting Cinderella's home to find the one who fits the glass slipper. But suddenly, the door bursts open and Seiya limps onto the stage, completely off script. He shouts that Shirota is an imposter who stole his role while he was injured. The audience gasps. Shirota freezes, unsure how to respond. But Takamine, quick on her feet, tries to keep the scene alive. Seiya, however, doesn't stop. He sneers that Takamine shouldn't let a nobody like Shirota even touch her, bragging about how he uses hand cream to keep his hands smooth. It clicks instantly. Seiya isn't acting. He's jealous, furious that he's ruining Takamine's final school festival. Shirota clenches his fists and finally speaks up. With firm resolve, he declares that even if he is just a stand-in, he won't back down, because someone as selfish as Seiya could never deserve her. His words echo through the hall, stirring both the audience and Takamine herself. The narrator's voice follows dramatically, asking who Cinderella will choose. Before anyone can react, Takamine grabs Shirota and kisses him right on stage. The entire gym goes silent, then explodes with screams and applause. Grabbing his hand, she pulls him off stage, both of them running out together as the crowd loses its mind, cheering for the couple who turned a school play into something unforgettable. After the play, Takamine's friends corner her, giggling and asking if she really kissed Shirota on stage. She shrugs it off with a calm smile, saying she only did what she had to do to keep the performance alive. As the festival comes to an end, she meets Shirota again and compliments him for his acting, saying he handled the spotlight better than she expected. Shirota, still red-faced, can't stop wondering if that kiss was just a thank you for helping her or something deeper. Gathering his courage, he finally asks why she did it. Takamine smirks and replies that she'll keep doing it again and again until he finally figures out the real reason. Her words leave his heart pounding, but his clueless brain jumps to the wrong conclusion, thinking she only wants to keep him as her personal helper through college too. Hearing that, Takamine sighs, clearly frustrated, and resets time once more. Before leaving for the closing ceremony, she tells him to think harder, and that until he discovers the true reason behind her actions, he'll remain her favorite helper. As she turns to go, Shirota helps her one last time, carefully dressing her plot armor back in place. But this time, there's no hesitation. He does it willingly, quietly hoping that moments like this never end, and that somehow, they'll stay together far beyond the school walls for the lifetime. Tell me, in the comments guys, what would you do? if you have this kind of girlfriend. That's it for today's video. Watch the following video, and I will catch you in the next one.